Cool. So we're going to talk about our mock code challenge, the Plantsy one, and yeah. So sounds like most people had a pretty good time with it. Those of you who didn't, what did you find the most challenging, or anyone? What parts did you feel kind of mushy on that you'd like to focus on?
I mostly just got like I got the fetch was all good and had initially this like repeat. I was getting like 1,000 returns, uh, and I figured that out, and I was able to get the data fine. But once I got kind of into the minutia of passing the data around, I ended up kind of just confusing myself and reading errors for a long time. Um, Yeah, so I guess really just kind of the props part of it. And I think I initially started passing information to the wrong component.
Hmm.
So that was just me just not really taking the time to read it thoroughly. But yeah, I guess mostly just the passing data around was kind of where I just lost myself.
Cool. Who else?
I was having an issue with the search
Hmm.
because I was like, oh, when I click on the thing, it wasn't giving me. I mean, I I was I was okay. It was like I didn't know how to uh type something in order to return me the information that I want. So like if I type the lower A, it's not giving me a plant with the lower A. If I
Hmm.
type the lower, like if I type the capital A, it's not like it wasn't giving me. But I wanted to press one word and it's just giving me like if I type Z, it should give me all plant that has Z in the name. But I was having an issue with that. But I kind of solved it, like managed to make it work. So yeah, but it was a real struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a not intuitive until you, I mean, it's not intuitive ever, but once you do it a few times, you start getting that flavor in there. Cool. Well, anyone else? All right. Let me go through and share screen here. And the screen, chat up. There we go. And meeting controls. And over here. Great. So I've got Plantsy up. This is I just downloaded it and or cloned it and did the install and then did the start and then it gave me the errors. So I had to delete the node modules and the package lock and I did the install again and then I did the start again and then I was like SSL. I was like, right, got to do the thing. Set that. Now it's working. So if you have a newer version of Node, it might have been a struggle. I would like them to fix that. But let's take a look at what we have to do. So this is what the stuff should look like. It's going to load these plants and have that search and have this form so we can add new stuff. It's really similar to the toy tail stuff we did. Was it yesterday? Let's say it was yesterday. So we're loading toys and adding toy and searching for stuff. So hopefully a lot of this will look familiar. And I think the thing that we'll do tomorrow is going to also be familiar according to this. So let's get into it. Anything that you struggled with or anything that you don't understand or anything that you would just like a little bit more information on, stop me, ask a question, and we will talk about it a little bit. So let's look at our first deliverable. When the app starts, I can see all the plants. Great. So we're going to pop into our see our index is there. Yeah, it's using the old syntax for React, but that's why. Cool. So here's our main app module, and we want to load the data from our API here, which looks like this. Is it running? It's running. Great. So we've got an array full of objects. Each object represents a plant. Each plant has an ID, a name, an image, and a price. And those prices are decimal numbers. Anyone know why that gives me a shiver.
You'll need to parse int at some point.
Nope, because those are going to show up as actual decimal numbers. Anyone watch Superman 3 way back? um, Google floating point number addition problems. You'll find out why this is a bad idea. I recommend not doing it this way. If you're going to store prices like this, store them in cents. Because often you're going to get, just because of the way that numbers work on computers, you're going to get real weird errors on some edge cases. But anyway, not going to worry about that right now. I have notes. So here's our data. What we want to do is when the app starts, we're going to see all the plants. And again, that is very deceptively simple. What that means is when we start the app, we want to add an effect to our main application. We need to do a fetch to the API. We need to grab the results from the API, probably put it in state, and then we need a way to render the state with that data into cards, and each card needs to render it a certain way. So make the plants show up is actually, and this is something when you get into the real world, people will write requirements like this. They'll be like, oh yeah, it's easy. Like, just show me plants. That is 20 steps the way we have our app set up. So it looks simple, and all these are deceptively simple looking. So let's take a look at what we need to do. So we've got our API here, right? Where's everything? Here, there. We've got our API here. So let's copy that link address. I'm going to throw that in a const up here. I'll call it plant API. Plant API. Apu. What did I uppercase that? I don't know. Cool. So that's our plant API there. And in our app, we want to do a thing once when we load. So like I said, that's going to be use effect. And so we want to have a little function that does a little fetch. And it's just going to fetch from the API there. And then, why did you get so helpful and annoying all of a sudden? Then we want to do our JSON dance. Language. And then, as that give me a little red boy there. And then we want to, well, let's just console log it out. Let's see, we got Nord stuff. Why don't I use the constant die setup? Great. Awesome. I think that's good. Let's go back here and take a look at our console. And here's the array of plants. Great. So we are getting the data. So we've done an effect. We're getting a data, and oh, is it? Why is it only doing it once? I'm scared. This is where the that infinite amount of plants thing you probably got came from. We just want to include that empty. I wonder if it does that automatically. Probably not. I wouldn't risk it. Put that empty dependency array at the end there. So it definitely will only load once. Make sure I didn't break anything. Great. I didn't break much. Cool. So we've got our plants. Now we want to keep them on the page. So we're getting our objects there. So let's go ahead and throw those up in state in app, because that's going to be the highest level of our application here that needs this stuff. So I'm just going to throw our constants up here. Just call it plants, set plants. And that's going to be a use state. And again, since we're expecting an array, we want to make sure the default state is the same shape as that. So that wants to be an array as well. And now we can just, instead of say console log, we can set plants. So this is going to take the result from the JSON and throw it to that function there, and it's going to set state for us. And again, if we want to, everything's working great. Here's our components. There's our app, and there is our state with all our plants in it. Hooray. Almost there. 2-ish more steps. So I haven't looked at our components yet. Let's see what we have. Plant page. I'm guessing that's going to be great. Plant list. Great. And here is our cards. So we want to render our plant cards components in here. And you can do it from either direction. You can pass stuff down and then do it down here, or you can do stuff down here and pass it back up. I'm going to start from the top. Yeah, Christian.
Oh, sorry.
Is that an actual hand up?
Okay, let's try that again. Okay,
Okay.
better. I just had a quick question about the fetch method. I wanted to see if I understood this now that I'm like looking at it. So one thing that I wondered is why is it only when we fetch the data that we have to have an empty bracket at the end? Because when I was looking at other like documents, it didn't seem like when we were I putting data on the database, it didn't really seem like they put any sort of ending brackets. And first of all, is that correct? Like you don't need brackets at the end if you're trying to use like a post.
So that's were those posts in a use effect or in a event handler?
They weren't in a use effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
The empty brackets is part of the use effect.
Okay, and use effect is gets used solely for like get method.
So it is just for doing something one time. Like you can just say, console log loaded dog. And that will in our console. Great.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah. So use effect is just for running something when the component renders. And if we only want it to do once, then we say, hey, do it when nothing changes. This is basically put a list of things in there. So like when these things change, then do the thing again. But since we only want it to do once, this will work just fine for us.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I was just wondering about that. I didn't have any issue with it. I was just wondering why is it that we use effect when we're trying to fetch data and not when we do like a post or a delete. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and if we wanted to, we could have it's annoying. If we wanted to, like there could be just like a load plants button here that we clicked and then it would load the plants. And in that case, this would all be in an event listener instead of use effect.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Oh yeah, because I do remember having a fetch on a event listener, and I don't believe that had a use effect inside that.
Yeah, because use effect has to be at the top level here of the application at the component, and it just says, "Hey, component, run this when you render."
That makes sense
according to the dependency array.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Makes perfect sense. I understand that now.
Yeah, and you don't need to use it for a fetch. You could use it. I've used it for lots of other things. So anything you just want to run once, like if it's like a visualization thing or whatever, that's a good place for it.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Awesome. Any more questions for that? Oh yeah, look at that. Henry, what's up?
I noticed that in the app, I guess component, the two children that it has are header and plant page. And I was looking through the header and it's just kind of like the logo and like the title of the page. So I kind of figured that, oh, like this doesn't really need any of the plant info. So I just fetched it in the inside the plant page component.
You could do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I probably would do it. So again, this is a philosophical point. I would probably still do it at the top of the app because that's kind of, if we're not using a state management system, that's kind of like the home state for it. So for like this one task, we do it and it's done. That works great. If this was an ongoing project, the 2 weeks down the road, the header might be like, cool, list the number of plants up here or something. And we'd have to pull that state back up and move it around that way. So this is just to keep it more flexible. But yeah, either way, rule one, it works.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's hard to show with these examples, even code challenge or even projects, because they're so tightly focused. There's best practices that exist out in the wild that you really don't need to worry about here, but they're good habits to get into if you think of it. If it takes too much time and you're struggling and you can't spend the brain slots for it, don't worry about it. As long as it works, it's good. Cool. Any more questions before we start throwing some data around? Jason, did you have a question?
Same question Henry asked.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Cool. Sweet. So the plant page is what is going to be displaying these plants. So let's go ahead and start the journey of passing plants down. So I'm just going to put a prop on there. They're called plants, and I'm going to spell it wrong every single time. So this is getting a prop called plants. I'm just going to destructure it out of here, and I'm going to need to throw it down. Yeah, you know what? Actually, yeah, you know what? It's going to be simpler now that I think about it to do it like Henry said. And so for now, I think I'm going to do it that way. I think I'm going to do it that way just to show you that there's more than way to do it. I would normally do it up top, but yeah, let's show off that this works too. So I don't need to pass this down the first time. We're just showing plant page, and we're going to keep our data down here. And so header, we don't really need to worry about at all, I don't think. And if we need to bring the state back up, we can. Christian, yeah.
Would you need to prop down the API variable?
Yeah, you got that right. Yes, indeed. Let's just bring that whole thing down. We don't even need to put in a prop. Cool. And in a real app, do I want to talk about recoil yet? Well, you're gonna learn it on the streets anyway. Maybe Friday I'll do a little thing on recoil. Recoil is a React thing that lets you not have to pass props all over the place. It's really nice, but it's a little more complex, and getting this down first is more important. So here's our plant page. We just changed some stuff. So what do we want to do before we start writing new code?
Check if it worked.
Yeah, we gotta see what we broke. Let's see what we broke. Woo! All sorts of good stuff. Okay, the thing I broke is I put the prop up here still. How about now? How you like me now? Nope, still use state is not defined. Yeah, because I didn't bring those imports either. Still gonna yell at me. I bet it is. Oh, I just don't want this part. Let's try this one step at a time. Cool. That there. That there. Less angry. Great. And let's just make sure, look at our components, make sure our state is where we want it. Now it's going to be a plant page. Awesome. There are our plants. So refactoring, always important when you change code that you expect not to change behavior. Check your work, because it's always a bad time. Great. So here is where we're going to pass stuff down to plant list. So again, we'll do the same thing that we did before. We're going to pass plants down there. And again, we're not passing it down here. Yeah, and commit before you do that. Exactly. So now we should have a prop in our plant list. Now we can grab plants from here. And now we can render our plants to each one. I don't know what our plant cards look like yet, so let's take a look at that. Cool. I'm gonna throw up before I read anything, I'm just gonna throw a plant singular in there. So it's got a hard card name, it's got an image, it's a placeholder, plant name, price. Great. So I'm passing a plant down. Let's pass them down first before we do anything else. So put it in the right place here. So I need to put a bunch of things here, and I need to get it from that plants list. So what am I gonna do with these plants?
Map them.
Yeah, I'm the map. All right.
I think this is where I was going wrong, is I did this in the exact opposite order. And I think I see what I was doing wrong.
Cool.
So, yeah, God, keep going. I just realizing I think I see what I was doing.
Cool. Yeah. So remember, map is a method on an array, and it's going to return a new copy of that array that is transformed in some way. So we want to take the array of objects that represent the plants, and we want them to turn it into an array or list of components that we're going to see on the page. So we're going to take each plant, and we're going to throw a plant card. And no, do I have like tab 9 or something turned on? I hope not. Plant card. I'm going to need the key, and the key is going to need to be the plant ID. If not, it's going to yell at you, and for good reason. And I'm going to pass the plant down. Great. Cool. So now we should be getting these down here in the plant cards, and let me look. Great. We have our keys all set up. Fantastic. And each plant card has a plant with an ID, image, name, and price. We just care about those last 3: image, name, and price. So in our plant card, so we have our image here. That's going to be plant image. And you can do that. You can, if you want to, you don't have to. This is just another way to do things. You can also do some further destructuring here. So you can say, what do we got? We got an object, right? So we can say image, name, and price here equals plant. And so now this is going to destructure again. It's going to take the keys that match these variables, and it's going to put those values in those variables. Now we can just say image. We can just say name. We can just say name. Just say price. I like to do this when there's a ton of things, in which case it probably needs to be restructured anyway. Or if it's like an odious amount of typing. I think this is less clear maybe in here. I like seeing plant image, plant name, just because my brain needs to know it's a plant. But again, different ways to do it. JavaScript, a bunch of different ways to do things. So did that do anything? Yes, it did. So we've got our plants. Looks like they match our data pretty well. Great. And I think that is our first super simple deliverable done. Awesome. What questions do we have up to this point? Feeling pretty good. All right. What are we doing next? I can add a new plant to the page by submitting the form. Great. So this form is going to be on in new plant form. Here we are. So we're going to submit this form, which lives up top, and that's going to post it both to the database, and we're going to get it in the, I'm going to close app. We're going to get it in the plant page as well, in the plant list, sorry. So let's just start off with the, where do we want to start? Let's start off with the form. So it's a form in a React component. That means it's probably a good idea to just go ahead and control that form. You don't want it to get all out of control there. So I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to do it the object way, which you can see that way, because we did the review on how to control a form with variables in our other one. I'll do it the object way because we have 3 things. That seems to be enough to throw in an object. So I'm just going to have one piece of state here. And this is going to be a new plant, we'll say, and set new plant. And again, new state. And so this plant is going to be an object. So we want that to be the same shape. We want the default thing to be an empty object as well. Cool. So let's do a couple things. First, we want to set the value according to what it is. So we'll say value equals, and since we have our object here, we're going to say new plant name. And so that value is going to go into that object and grab the name out of it. since there's no value yet, it shouldn't show anything. In fact, how much lying am I doing? None. Great, great. I was worried it might show undefined there, but it's not going to. So we're just going to do the same thing here. Image and yeah, Jason.
Does the placeholder supersede any value that may be in value when the page is loaded?
Oh, great question. This is so the placeholder is exactly that. It is just a visual thing. This doesn't actually represent any value. So it's not superseding any of the actual value that's there. It's purely a UI thing that just visually says this is what goes here. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Cool, cool. Yeah, that can be confusing sometimes because you could have a placeholder that has a legit looking value, and when you go to submit, there's nothing there. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm just gonna give us a little bit of breathing room here. Great. So and let's take a look at what that state looks like. So here is our components, and I'm just gonna say, well, let's look at our new plant form, and we have our state here. So it doesn't have anything in it right now. If I say tree, nothing, because we haven't hooked up our onChange. So let's do that next. And here's where I can actually use the name of the input to help add stuff to the object. So let's look at what that function might look like first. I'm going to say onChange. We're just going to call it onChange or handle change. Sorry. Handle change. This is a function that takes an event. So this is what happens when we type into one of the fields. So we need to find two important things. We need the actual name of the thing, and we need the value of the thing. And we can just say, so here's our, I don't want to do too many steps at once. Okay, let me just look at the value. So I'll say const new value equals, and so now we're going to get the target, which is the input thing itself, and we're going to call the value. And now I can get the name. So const input name, the target name. And so this will be whatever we call it here, here, and here. And conveniently, they match up with the fields in our object. So now we can say we're going to add that object to the plant object, or we can add those, values to that plant object. And now we're going to need to use that spread operator again. And this is why I kind of pulled it apart here. So it's a little bit less confusing, relatively. So we need to set new plant. And since we cannot change that state, or we can, but it's not going to be a good time, we want to replace that state. We want to replace that object with a new object that has the new value in that one particular place. So we need to use that, the spread operator there. So first off, we'll start off with an empty object. Great. We want to spread the values of what's in the current object into there. So whatever was in that object, we're basically making a copy of it. And then we can just say, and by the way, we want to do, what do we want to do? I want to do this in a less confusing way. Let's just do this then. Let's break it down even further. What do I want to call this? Updated plant. I'm just going to use our stuff from here. So updated plant is a copy of the old array with the same things in it. And now we can just say updated plant, input name. And so we're using the bracket notation on that object. And we're just setting it to the new value. And now we can just add that to the state. It looks longer and inconvenient, just I'm kind of spreading it apart. So it hopefully makes a little bit more sense. So the way we're going to use it is we're going to say on change equals handle change. And we can literally just put that same thing in all of our fields. And so each of those different fields can use this same function. It's going to, when it changes, ideally, when it changes, it's going to get the value of the input field. It's going to find out the name of the input field from here. It's going to create a new copy of the array or of the object, the state object. And it's going to add that new value to it with that key. So we're going to set that key to that value. And then the last step is just updating the state, changing that object. Does it work? Great question. Let's find out. So here is our plant form. Right now, there's nothing in state. Does anything explode when I type into it? Tree. Hey, look at that. And notice there's no keys for the other ones because I haven't created them yet. HTTP tree. And the price is real expensive. Great. And so as we are updating that, if it's not there, it's going to create it. If it is there, it's going to update that value and then set the state to the new thing. And we are all good for the controlled form. So, and again, this is a way to do it. If you just want to do 3 states and have a state for name, image, and price, and just change those per each, you can totally do that. Totally works. This is just an option. Yeah, Christian.
I just used set new plant, and then I gave it a spread operator for the new plant data that we have. And then I used a comma, then I used a bracket notation for e.target.name, and then colon e.target.value. That basically is the same thing, right?
Yeah. This is just more expanded.
Okay.
You can also spread parts out of the event too, so you can do like value and name out of the event, and then use the spread the bracket notation for the name. Don't it worked without using it for the value. I don't know why, but if it works, it works. So
yeah. Yeah, you can definitely make this more condensed. I just wanted to show it step by step. So because it's a little bit, it's involving a couple new things all smashed together. All right, let's do our so now that we're convinced that works, I'm going to say we're going to handle submit, or I'm going to say function submit form. Cool. And I'm just going to throw that on the form as our event listener on submit equals submit form. Form. Great. And now here we just need to do our usual little thing. We need to prevent default. This is where it refuses to be helpful. And so all we need to do is take whatever handler we're getting and pass it the new plant object. So I'm just going to call our handler up here, going to destructure it. This will be our handle submit. And so we're just going to call handle submit with our new plant. And just to clear out everything, I'm going to just set new plant to an empty object. And that will clear out our state. And when the state gets cleared, that's also going to clear out our form because the value is attached to the state. Great. So we don't have a handle submit on this yet. So let's pop back up to the plant page, right? And so our new plant form needs a handle submit prop. Helpful. And let's, you know what? Oh, set plants. We want to add the plant. Great, right. So we're going to call this add new plant. Why not? And it will take the new plant to add. Plant. Cool. And we'll call it add new plant. And so since we are setting up the new plant object, that will have the name, price, and image on it. And here's where we want to do that post fetch. So nope. Let's do that fetch. And we're fetching to our plant API. And since we are not doing a get, we need to give some options. So here's our method post. Here's our, I should just have a shortcut for this after however long. Here's our headers. Accepts. Nope, come on. There's our headers, and now we just need that body. And so it's just to be the new plant. Stringified. New plant. Come on. Cool. So that should make our post. And since the post should be giving us back the plant with the ID, which is important because we don't have an ID yet, we'll do our little JSON dance here and get that stuff taken care of. Need to find out why so many things are popping up. It's driving me nuts. Then what are we doing? Then we're just going to update the state with a new plant, and we do that with a spread again. Set plants. We want to get the JSON. I should call it JSON. That's really the plant. Take the plant and then set plants. And so it needs an array. You can't see my finger. There it is. An array, and that array needs to have the current contents of plants spread out. And we're just going to add the new plant at the end. And that assumes that the fetch comes back properly, which hopefully it should. Whew, that's a lot of stuff. Let's see if it actually does anything. Up. Great. So here's our tree. Give me a picture of a tree. Yeah, that's a tree. Grass. Price is priceless. And let's see what happens. Yeah, there's our tree. And if we reload the page, there's our tree. Great. So we did part 2, I think. We hooked up the form so we were able to add a new tree. And again, that involved a lot of things. That involved on our plant page, making a first off, making this. And again, the order is not important. Sometimes I'll do this part first and work my way down. So add new plant. This is going to take a plant object, do a post to our database, add that to the database, and when it comes back, we're going to take the whole object with the ID and everything. And we're going to use our setter to add that to a copy of the current thing. So we're taking that function and we're passing it down to our new plant form as handle submit. We are hooking up a submit form to here. So it's going to prevent the default, handle submit with the plant state, and then clear out the form. And we have our form fully controlled. So the value of each thing is the appropriate key from this object. And the onChange is going to grab the name and value and set the right name and value and update our state there. And then we hit the submit form, handle submit goes up, add new plant goes burr, and we are all good to go. That is a lot of moving pieces. That's a lot of moving pieces. Ask me some questions about it. Did anyone feel like they did not get to this part or was not able to make this work?
I had a little trouble with the submit refreshing the page, but I managed to sort that out by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having the prevent default, I had it in the wrong place. So it was, yeah.
Yeah. The mistake I will still make 20% of the time, probably, maybe less these days, is putting the submit on the button. And
I
then
literally did that
That's
during
what
my coding
was the problem
challenge.
was.
I did exactly that. And it took me
Yep.
like 5 minutes to figure out why it was reloading.
faster than figuring out than I am. I do it less these days. I've just done it so much. But yeah.
It doesn't help that when you have an error react points across the room from where the error actually is. It says, oh no, it's over there in the other component.
I have a question about that actually.
Yeah.
Why is it when you click the button to add a plant, the on submit, how does that access the button? Not access, for lack of a better term, but how does it know that without it being on the on submit function on the actual button? How would submitting, how does that relate to the actual form on submit?
Yeah.
To the button itself?
So the form itself is our thing that's going to hold all our data and do the submission. There's a special kind of button, type submit. You might also see it as input type submit. And that's just another, you'd put a value here to put the words in. But basically, it's just a special kind of button that says, hey, if you are inside a form, when you click this, basically what's happening is the button is actually, I might be wrong. The button is throwing an event. I'm pretty sure it's a submit event or some sort of triggering event, and the form is listening to that button. And so when you click the button behind the scenes throws an event to the form and says, hey, I'm ready to go. And the form's like, great, let's do it. And so since the form has all of the other inputs inside of it and the button does not, that allows it to submit all that information.
And that only happens because it's a type submit.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as the function. Okay.
Yeah, if it was just a plain button, it would do nothing.
Okay.
If you have like if you want to have two buttons to submit an update, you have to have two different forms. So the form knows which one to.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's more of a UX question, I guess. So, you could do a thing where you clicked on a plant and then it populated that, and you could update and maybe say, maybe when you click it, have something to make that change. You could use the same form, or you could have two different forms with two different submit buttons. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions about this complicated little part? Cool. Let's see what we have to do next. I can mark a plant as sold out. Great. I don't think it says a number. It probably wants us. It doesn't say to do a post, but sold out. Interesting. So this is one of those deliverables that if I got this from a designer or a product manager at a job, I would have a lot of questions to ask them. What does it mean when a plant is sold out? How do I mark a plant as sold out? Let's take a look. There might be some answers in the plant card. True, primary in stock, out of stock. So I think all I would do, I want to do this the simplest way possible first. I assume it doesn't have another thing that I would click or do to make it sold out, or another field. So I'm just going to say, well, do we have a number? We don't have a number in there available, right? So maybe I am just adding an extra field to it. And it doesn't say to, the spec doesn't say to post it. So I'm just going to do it here first, and we know how to do a post already, or a patch, I guess. If there was something like this on a code challenge and you saw that it required a patch, I would not require it to have a patch. I think get and post is as far as we want to go on the challenge. Great. So the other questions I have for the producer are, how do I mark a plant as sold out? Do I need a button on there to mark it sold out? Do I just do it in the database? I don't see any buttons here, and I don't have any specifications for buttons. So
That's what I was wondering too.
yeah. So again, if
The
there's
in stock and out of stocks
In
are
stock.
buttons.
Yeah, they're buttons.
say that again.
The in stock and out of stock.
Ternary statement. Those are buttons.
Oh, those are buttons. Oh
And
no.
then I saw that too. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. That's really bad UX. I would not want to click on a button to make it in stock or out of stock. That's a bad requirement. I think that's a bad requirement. All I'm going to do is say, I'm going to throw it. I'm going to do it the simplest way possible. And it doesn't say how to mark it out of stock. I'm going to say out of stock. So if there's an out of stock thing, I'm just going to switch these around. So, oops, trow. Out of stock. So if it's out of stock, I want it to say out of stock. If it's in stock, I want to say in stock. So all these should still say in stock. I can go into the database and say out of stock. True. Great. And when that reloads, hey, out of stock. Great. We did it.
I don't think they wanted us to manipulate the database.
Yeah. It doesn't say. It says I can mark a plant as sold out, and I did that. That's a bad specification. But yeah, if we wanted to do it the way they probably want it, by clicking the in stock button, which a customer should not be able to do, we would, on the plant card, on the in stock button, we would hook up an on click listener here, and then we would do something. Again, it doesn't say to persist it. So if we wanted to, we could just have a, instead of putting it in the DB, we could make a state. So we could say const in stock. In stock equals true. So by default, it's going to be true. And then just like
use state, don't forget use state.
Use state, thank you. Every time. I was going to put an event listener on click equals, and I'm just going to do it in line here. And I'm just going to say set. So helpful. Set in stock to false. And I'm not going to persist it because it doesn't ask me to. And so now I should be able to get some errors. What did I do? Woohoo! Look at all that stuff. Out of stock is not defined. Oh, in stock. Set in stock. In stock. But I made it backwards again. In stock? Question mark? Oh no, I messed everything up. Try to get. Oh yeah, because that's part of the button. Mm-hmm. Oh god, I made everything terrible. Let's try this again. Ha. There we go. That's what I get for trying to make it pretty. Nope. What did I do?
Still out of stock, your variable.
My variable still out of stock. There we go. Now, if it's in stock, it'll show the in stock. Blammo. And if I click, nothing, absolutely nothing. There we go. In stock, all out of stock. All out. No one can get anything. And it doesn't say to persist it, so those will go away when I reload it. Yeah, if I got that requirement, I would ask a lot of questions because I've definitely done the thing where it's like, cool, I'm going to implement it the way I think is right. And they're like, that's not what we wanted. You should have asked for what you wanted then. Cool. Yeah. If there's a question about it, there should be no patch or delete on a code challenge. So ask questions or assume that it's not. Cool. What a mess. Let's just skip to the fourth one. I can search for plants by their name and see a filtered list of plants. Do we have a search field? Yes, we do. Cool. So this should be relatively easy. Plant page. I would call it plants page, but so we have a search. What's in our search? Cool. So this is another form. I'm just going to make this a controlled form real quick. It's just going to be one state. Call it search term. Use state. And that's going to start off as an empty string because we're looking at strings. And hey, on change, we're going to just go ahead and set the value. Set search term to the event target value. And we want the value to be search term. Great. So ideally, if I look at it in here, here's our search, nothing in there, type, and the search should show up. Great. Does not do anything now because we need it to pass that variable back up, I guess. So I'm just going to say handle, I'm going to say handle search. Yeah, look at that. Handle search. So that's a function I'm going to pass down. And I'm going to make a new function called, well, I don't think I'm going to need to, right? Because it's going to, let me review this for a second here. Search is going to be, how do we want this to work? We wanted to set the new state when, yeah, okay, great. So we're going to need another state up here. Search term, set search term. We're going to use state is nothing. And this is interesting because this is actually not controlling a form. This is just a piece of information. So we could set it to some default value and it's only going to screw up the search. But handle search. So we just need to set the search term. So we're going to pass down the setter for our state to the handle search and make sure that's what we want. So this is going to be set search term. And set search term. Where do we get that from? Set search term. Great. Wow. Do we need this state there? Yeah, we do. Gosh, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I'm going to have on change do two things, I guess. Yuck.
If I have, so the way I did this was I just had search term and set search term as a single piece of state in the plant page, and then I passed both search term and set search term down as props.
Yeah, that's
and it worked well for me.
So. Yeah, that should do it. Just to keep compartmentalization, I would want the search to have its own state. But yeah, if your way works, great. It's a lot nicer. Because I would like, even though it's kind of repeating data here, I want the search box to have its own state so it knows what it is. And I don't want that have to be attached to this state up here because we might, put the search in the nav bar or something, and then we'd have to like go back and rewire it or any number of things. So just to keep things a little bit compartmentalized, I'm going to do, it's a little bit uglier inside, but once we do it, it's gone. And so now we're going to do handle search with the, I'm just going to say, ooh, no, I'm going to say e-target value. Why would I not want to put search term here in handle search?
The setter function is asynchronous.
Setter function is asynchronous. Yeah, so we'd be like one letter behind all the time. So I've got an error here. Great. Bloop, bloop, format. Cool. So now in theory, this should pass the target value up to the handle search. Handle search should be set search term. It will set the new search term. That should be our search term. Let's double check that in our plant page, I guess. So that should be our state for the search term. If everything works okay, great. That's exactly what we want. And now we can just filter our plant list. And we want to match the plant name, right? Includes. Does it include or includes every single time? Includes, yes. Okay. Includes our search term. All right. That feels pretty good. I'm like 80% convinced that's going to work. Let's see. Here's, I'll look for an L. Most of them have L's. How about a G? There's just the, how about a G? There's a fig. Great. It's not doing case sensitive. A will bring up that. Lowercase a will bring up all those. We talked about how to do case sensitive before, so I'm not going to add more junk there to look at. Great. And that is all the stuff that satisfies those 3.5 deliverables there. What questions do we have about all of this, if any?
Can I ask a quick question about the advanced deliverables? It's just really simple. I added a delete button for the delete fetch method, and I put it right beside the out of stock button, and I just wanted to flex it in the end, and I was having a hard time flexing it to the end of the container or the tile. It showed up right next to it. And I was just having, it's just aesthetic purposes. I just wanted to add, so there's like a quick.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be poking through the CSS problem.
CSS, yeah, I figured.
Yeah, and it looks like it's with Flex too. So, if you're not familiar with Flex, it can be a little bit tricky to figure out like which things affect the elements inside and which things affect the container itself. But, yeah, that is something to play with. And
I wanted to see if it was set to 100% width, so I could just put it on the other side. But that extended the whole button, not the actual container.
Yeah, we can play around with that. It's just a matter of CSS is.
I'm not sure if this would work, but you might be able to use justify right so within the tile.
Yeah, maybe. Highly recommend the CSS tricks Flexbox stuff.
Justify, you need an extra space though. If there's no space, and it isn't justified to anything, from what I understand.
So for the children, yeah, you'll find your answer on this page somewhere. CSS tricks Flexbox. Cool. Any other questions about all this stuff? Or anything that seemed more difficult or more obtuse than you expected?
I have a question. I realized that I forgot to, in my search, to set the value attribute, but I still got it working. Like,
cool.
Is it like because I have my on change in there, and I also have the handle search. So I was wondering, why does that work? Is it because like when I fill it in, it's just like automatically setting the value attribute?
Was it kind of like that?
Event? Yeah.
Yeah. So
but I just didn't set like value equals to like I didn't declare state, like essentially.
Why is it complaining at me? Search term is not defined. Oh, right. Yeah. So handle search, search term, value equals. I'll just take the value.
So I basically just didn't have that.
So this is just a regular HTML form. This is what a form looks like, and it should Z great G, yeah, that will still work. And again, rule 1, it works fantastic. This is more of a rule 2 thing, make it easy to think about. And so when we want to use a form, and even if it's just a simple form like this, when you're working in a larger application especially, there's going to be standards for how you build components like this. And in general, we want each component to be as self-contained as possible. There's really no reason this doesn't work. So It's just that we like to have those controlled. So instead of throwing around values, we can throw around state. In this case, it's pretty simple and you don't really need to. And it reads a little bit nicer. So maybe it satisfies rule 2 here. Again, it's just a matter of being flexible, either in making it flexible upfront or being flexible in that if you come across, premature optimization is the root of all evil and all that stuff. If you do it like this and it totally works, that's great. I'm all for it. If you continue developing and you discover a place where it should have its own internal state, or if some directive comes down from your senior developer and says that, the flexibility to refactor it so that works a different way internally is great. But yeah, on the outside, like as long as plant page, where's plant page? Plant page. So as long as that works, it could be two different people working on it. One person could be working on plant page, one person could be working on the search form. As long as you have both agreed that the component's going to look like this when you use it, and set search term is going to do something with the stuff it sends back. How it's implemented on the inside doesn't really matter. Again, it could be two different people, could be two different teams, who knows? So yeah, as long as that agreement in the middle is set, and if you're making an agreement with yourself, then that is super flexible and you can do it however you want. Did that help, or was that just too much?
No, that was fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Cool. We're right on time. Any last questions about any of this stuff?
Yeah, I have a question
Mhm.
about the plant card. The way that you did the out of stock, because it's contained like this, the rest of the plants, like if you pass the plant from the original, like where you fetched it, it's not gonna know that it's sold, right?
Right. Yeah. This is purely local, and entirely out of spite.
Yeah, because I did it. I added like the field into the actual like on the fetch.
Yeah.
But then after I finished, I was like, well, nothing else really needs to know about it.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's just the kind of, because nothing else is using it, it's fine here.
Yeah. Again, like if I got that at a job, I would ask questions first. If I didn't get answers in a timely manner or didn't get answers that are useful for me, I might do it this way out of spite. And when they're like, hey, that's not doing the thing we wanted, I can say, yes, it is. You should have told me you wanted it differently. But talk to people first. Spite is a last resort. Awesome. Anything else? Cool. Let me stop sharing here. Great. So how do folks feel after this? Any better? Any worse?
Is this how the push on is going to be like?
Yeah, this is pretty. I think there's only 3, and the deliverable should be more clear. So yeah, it should be pretty much like this, maybe a little bit easier.
Did you say easier?
Maybe, no promises. Cool. Any last questions before we wrap it up and hit some lunch? Cool. I'll post this video in the usual places. I'll send a link to the channel, and yeah, we'll catch up later on. Thanks for hanging out, and see you in a little bit.